Billionaire laughed at the mechanic. Then she apologized 4 minutes. Just 4 minutes away from the biggest deal of her life, and Vivian Cole's billion-dollar sports car decided to die on her. The engine coughed once, then silence. No signal, no assistant, no driver. Just her, alone, on a dusty back road, staring at a dashboard full of dead lights and a billion reasons to scream. She slammed the steering wheel, kicked off her heels, and cursed under her breath. The air smelled like burnt rubber and panic. Sweat rolled down her spine as she looked around for any sign of help. Nothing but endless road. Until she spotted it, the tiny mechanic shop half a mile away, its faded sign barely holding on, roof rusting under the sun. Not exactly her kind of place, but she didn't have a choice. Vivian grabbed her bag, straightened her blazer, and marched across the gravel lot like she still had control over something. Inside, the air was thick with oil and grease. A tall black man in his mid-30s looked up from under a truck hood, his hands covered in grease, shirt damp with sweat, but his calm was unshakable. He studied her for exactly 1 second, then said nothing. "I need this fixed, now," Vivian snapped, her voice sharp, fast, controlled. "I'm closing a billion-dollar deal in 30 minutes. Just make it run, whatever it takes." He wiped his hands slowly on a rag, stepped toward her car, glanced at the engine once, and said evenly, "I can do it in 5 minutes." She laughed, not kindly. It was bitter, sarcastic, laced with disbelief. 5 minutes? Sure, you fix this in 5 minutes, I'll marry you. It wasn't a promise, it was a dare. An insult, wrapped in a joke that he didn't flinch. Just nodded once, opened the hood, and got to work. 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Vivian checked her watch, pacing back and forth, her nerves rattling with every passing second. The man worked fast, precise, silent, as though he'd done this 1,000 times before. And then, at 4 minutes and 30 seconds, the engine roared back to life. Smooth, perfect, effortless. Vivian froze. She'd built her entire empire on control, on being the smartest person in the room. But at that moment, she had nothing to say. No command, no lecture, no excuse. She reached into her designer bag, pulled out a sleek black business card with her name embossed in gold, and handed it to him. "Come see me tomorrow," she said quietly, almost humbled. "I keep my word." Then she slipped into her car and sped back toward the city, her heart pounding, not from the deal, but from something she couldn't name. The next morning, Vivian closed the billion-dollar merger that night. She won, like always. But she couldn't sleep. Her mind kept circling back to that tiny garage, to the man who'd fixed what she couldn't, to the sarcasm in her own voice, and the way he hadn't said a word about it'd-be morning. She made a decision. When the elevator doors of her glass-walled skyscraper opened, her assistant nearly dropped her tablet. There, standing in a clean shirt and pressed pants, was the mechanic. Confident, calm, unmoved by the stares from her polished, million-dollar staff. Vivian stepped forward. "I'm ready to keep my promise." He looked straight at her, steady, unshaken, and said softly, "No, you're not." A different kind of lesson. Vivian blinked. "Excuse me." He met her eyes, unafraid. "Marriage isn't a reward for panic or pride. It's built on respect. And yesterday, you didn't offer me any." His words landed like a punch she didn't see coming. Not anger, not shame, realization. She'd mocked him, his shop, his hands, even his skin. And yet, he'd given her nothing but quiet excellence. Her throat tightened. "You're right," she said finally, her voice trembling in a way it hadn't in years. "I was rude, arrogant, even racist." She reached into her bag again, but this time, it wasn't a business card. It was a set of keys, the duplicate keys to her rare European sports car, one of only 5 in the entire country. "This isn't a reward," she said softly. "It's repayment. For your time, for your dignity, for the grace I didn't deserve. Worth more than wealth." He didn't smile, didn't bow, didn't gloat. He simply nodded, took the keys, and walked out. Head high, shoulders steady, pride intact. Vivian stood there, surrounded by glass and gold, watching him disappear into the elevator. And for the first time in her career, she felt something money had never bought her. humility. That day, she learned something she'd spent her whole life ignoring. There's a difference between being wealthy and being worthy, and worth doesn't come with a price tag. A chance encounter. 3 weeks passed. Vivian buried herself in work, jumping from meeting to meeting, sealing deals worth more than most people would earn in 10 lifetimes. But something had shifted. At boardroom tables where she once dominated every conversation, she started listening more. At investor dinners, she noticed the waiters she used to ignore. Even her assistant whispered to a colleague, "She's different now." One Friday evening, driving through the city in her backup car, Vivian slowed as traffic crawled near the edge of town. And there, across the street, she saw a familiar sign. The little mechanic shop with the rusting roof. On instinct, she turned the wheel. When she stepped inside, the same warm smell of oil and rubber hit her. And there he was, Marcus Bennett, wiping his hands on a rag, head bent over a stripped-down engine. He glanced up, and for a moment, neither spoke. "You again," he said, calm as ever. Vivian smiled faintly. "Me again? You here to insult me? Or buy another car?" She hesitated, then laughed softly, the sound surprisingly genuine. "Neither. I came to say thank you. Properly." A conversation that changed everything. Marcus leaned against the hood, arms folded, studying her like he was seeing past the diamonds and sharp edges. "You already did that," he said simply. "No." She shook her head. "I paid you back. That's different." Something softened in his expression, just slightly. "Fair enough." For the next hour, they talked. Not about the car, not about the deal she'd almost missed, but about where they came from, what they valued, the paths that had led them here. Vivian learned Marcus had left a comfortable engineering job to take over his late father's shop, keeping it alive despite endless offers to sell. "You could make 3 times as much at a big company," she said. He shrugged. "Some things aren't about money." The words hit her harder than she expected. The offer. The following Monday, Vivian called Marcus to her office. Her staff stared, again, as the mechanic walked through the glass doors of Cole Enterprises, wearing clean jeans and quiet confidence. "Sit," she said, motioning him toward the long marble table in her private boardroom. He looked uncomfortable. "This isn't my world." "Then maybe it should be," she replied, sliding a document across the table. Marcus glanced at the paper. A proposal, stamped and signed. She wanted to invest in his shop, renovate it, expand it. "Why?" he asked finally, suspicion in his tone. Vivian leaned back, folding her hands. "Because people like me build empires out of numbers and glass towers, but people like you build trust, craftsmanship, pride. I can scale a company to a billion-dollar valuation in 6 months, but I can't make it mean something." Marcus was silent for a long time. Then he shook his head slowly. "I don't want to sell my shop." Vivian smiled. "I'm not buying it. I'm backing it." Clashing Worlds partnership was never easy. Vivian's board thought she'd lost her mind. A luxury brand investing in a backroad garage. "It's absurd," one executive sneered. Marcus didn't make it easier. He refused flashy marketing campaigns. He rejected her idea to import expensive machines from Europe. "Good work doesn't need a gold label," he told her. They argued. A lot. But somewhere in the tension, they began to respect each other. Marcus pushed Vivian to slow down, to see people instead of spreadsheets. Vivian challenged Marcus to dream bigger, to believe his father's small-town shop could have global reach without losing its soul. The breaking point then came. The storm point. One night, a supplier failed to deliver a shipment for Marcus's expansion, costing them nearly $2 million. Vivian was livid. She stormed into the shop, barking orders at everyone. Old habits creeping back. Marcus stopped her cold with a single sentence. "This isn't your boardroom, Vivian. These are my people." The room fell silent. For a moment, her pride flared, until she saw the faces of his employees, watching her like a stranger who didn't belong. She exhaled, slow and heavy, and finally stepped back. That night, she sat in her car for an hour before driving home, realizing just how much she still had to learn. 6 months later, the renovated shop opened under a new name, Bennett and Cole Motors. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't dripping in luxury branding, but it had something better: reputation. Word spread fast about the little garage with unbeatable quality, and within months, car enthusiasts from across the state were driving hours just to get their engines tuned there. Marcus ran the floor. Vivian handled strategy. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't leading alone. She was building alongside someone she respected. Full circle one late evening. After closing, Marcus stood outside the shop, wiping grease from his hands, when Vivian pulled up in the car he'd fixed that first day. "You kept it," he said, surprised. "Of course I did," she smiled, leaning against the hood. "Every time I drive it, I remember the lesson." He chuckled. "And what lesson's that?" She met his gaze, steady and sincere. "That wealth doesn't define worth. And that sometimes the people you underestimate the most change you the most." Marcus nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Good. As long as you never make another marriage bet over an engine." Vivian laughed, shaking her head. "Deal." The quiet after they never became what the gossip columns expected. No whirlwind romance. No billionaire mechanic fairy tale. What they built was something rarer: respect, trust, and a partnership that transformed them both. For Vivian, it wasn't about losing control. It was about finally understanding she never really had it in the first place. And for Marcus, it was proof that dignity doesn't demand wealth. It commands it. And sometimes, the biggest deals of your life have nothing to do with money at all.